Thanks for joining us on 9 News Plus. I'm Chris Bianchi. You've probably heard a lot about RSV this fall and its impacts on children in particular. We want to separate fact from fiction and what you can do to both avoid RSV and what warning signs to look for in case you or someone you know is affected by the virus. We spoke with 9 News medical expert Dr. Payal Kohli about RSV, and here's what she had to say.
We wanted to bring you in because I know a lot of parents have kids at home that are coughing and showing symptoms, like my daughter Callie. So I think the biggest question is, at what point do you know that you need to go seek help at a doctor, urgent care, emergency room?
Such an important question for parents, and I hope she's okay.
She's okay.
But you need to look at not just the cough in isolation, because cough is very common with colds and respiratory tract infections, especially in kids, but other signs and symptoms that are concerning. So the biggest one of those is shortness of breath and difficulty breathing. And the way to do that in young kids is to watch their breathing pattern, watch their chest rise, see if they're grunting, flaring their nostrils when they're breathing, if they're using their neck muscles to breathe, because they actually are pulling air in instead of it automatically going in with suction. Now keep in mind, when kids have asthma, when they start fatiguing out, you can actually hear less grunting and less air movement, and see less chest wall rise. So if they had that and it went away, that may even actually be a more ominous sign. You want to look for fever. So in a baby under 3 months, it's 100.3, and in a baby over 3 months, it's 102.2 or higher.
That's high. Surprising.
You want to look for coughing up blood, muffled voice, drooling, inability to open their mouth, or if they can't swallow.
This is where I say the mama gut always comes into play,
Yeah.
right? You know, I mean, truly, you know when things start to look a little bit more serious.
Yeah, I mean, our baby had RSV, and you could tell.
Yeah.
I mean, you could tell that they were really laboring. So there's crud going around everywhere. When do you keep kids at home, and when's it okay to, let them go out?
You know, I think those really other signs are the biggest clue. So if you don't have a fever, you don't have any other symptoms of an infection, if your cough is not productive, and what I mean by that is you're not coughing up any phlegm, it's not a wet cough, if you listen to it, it's just a dry cough. We can sometimes see that up to 4 weeks after a respiratory tract infection. Kids can actually even get something called a psychogenic cough, which can be related to anxiety. And the way to tell the difference between that and something more real is if they're having it during sleep, or if they're having it during play. So if they're distracted and they're not coughing when they're playing, it could just be related to anxiety. Sometimes kids choke on something and it can actually sit in there for a while. So if the cough comes on after, a kid looks like they've choked or aspirated on something, then it could actually be a foreign body inside that we sometimes find days or weeks later.
I feel like whenever a fever is involved, that's like a telltale sign your kid shouldn't go to school. But how is it spread? Is it by cough? Is it the runny nose? How is it spread?
RSV?
Yes.
Yes. So RSV is a respiratory infection. So it's spread by all the same things that COVID-19 is spread by. Close person-to-person contact, respiratory secretions, cough. So the good news is, guys, we're so good now at knowing how to prevent COVID. It's all the same strategies that apply to RSV. Now with kids, it's a little more difficult because hygiene, and they put everything in their mouth.
They touch everything.
And they touch everything. So we really have to be their eyes and ears about hand hygiene, about distancing, and that includes keeping your kid at home if you think they may have something more than, just a chronic cough. We also know that kids have very little lung reserve. So with adults, when we get a cold or something, our lungs can compensate because our respiratory muscles, the muscles that help us to breathe, are strong and they're conditioned. But with kids, they can very easily decompensate because they have weak respiratory muscles. They have a smaller chest wall. They have what we call floppy chests. So there's just not as much force in their chest when they take a deep breath. So we have to be just really careful with them.
Yep. Well, all good advice, because now's the time people need to know this stuff, It is really rampant out there,
it's scary
unfortunately.
for families.
Dr. Kohli, always good to see you. Thank you.